Good morning, everyone. Hot Mike here. Jeff Baker, Chair of Arapahoe County, Chair of, no, I'm not, no. Chair of DRCOG, and so I'll be chairing this meeting of the Regional Transportation Committee. This is Tuesday, January 20th. It's 8:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I understand we have a lot of public comment this morning, so we'll go ahead and get started. Jacob, can you help me with that one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Baker. Good morning, everyone. Jacob Rieger with DRCOG staff. So you all should have received from me actually a matrix that I sent out Friday afternoon that contained the public comment we had received through close of business Thursday for item number 5 on our agenda today, which is attachment C, related to the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan, which is an action item. Since I sent out that matrix, we received at least 10 more, Cam, about 10 more emailed kind of, written public comment statements sent to us over email. I know we have at least one person here in person to testify. So just wanted to be transparent that we are receiving a lot of public comment and you have seen most of it. We will post all of it as part of the meeting summary, meeting materials after this meeting. So Chair Baker, with that, I'll turn it back to you and Cam so that we can have folks who want to testify for public comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So we're taking both general public comment and comment item number 5 at this time. Okay. Thank you, Cam. Do you have anyone waiting to speak?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to open it up for members attending or members of the public attending online for a second first. So if you're listening and you have a public comment, please raise your hand. Okay, going once. Seeing none, I'm now going to open it up to members of the public in person. We do have one. So if you're ready, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kristen Smith. I'm currently a resident in the Barnum neighborhood over on 6th and Federal. And I'm here this morning to speak to number 5. I have concerns that DRCOG has this beautiful 2050 plan with great goals outlined and that the dollar investments between now and 2050 do not support those goals. Specifically, I'm worried about the proposed highway expansions. Honestly, my main personal motivators are environmental. Welcome to January in 2026. Our power keeps getting shut off because there might be a fire. My manager had to evacuate on December 23rd for risk of a fire with her 2 dogs, cat, and small child. And that has just never been a thing in my entire life. I want to reiterate that a lot of us are out here debating if we should use straws or not, and the folks in this room have the ability to actually move funding. Transit is the #1 cause of greenhouse emissions in the Denver metro region, with 34% of emissions coming from transit. Reinvesting in sustainable multimodal transit is a major thing that we can do to reduce that number. So if there's anything that can be done, I know it's a Tuesday morning. We're just getting back from the holidays. It feels like it's not important, but it really, really, really is. Please designate money in support of the goals that are laid out in the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Is there anyone else in the room?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. No other hands raised. I'll give it back to you.
All right, thank you very much. The December 16th, 2025 RTC meeting summary was attached in your packet. Are there any comments or questions? Any corrections? Those will stand as approved. We'll move on to item number 4, first of our action items. This is fiscal year 2025 Transportation Improvement Program, first year delays. This is attachment B in your packet. And is Brad Williams here? There he is. Excellent. You have the floor, Mr. Williams.
Morning, everyone. I'm Brad Williams, planner with DRCOG, and today we'll go over the FY25 first-year TIP project delays. Our current TIP policy outlines the expectations for the initiation of project phases, including how to address delays if they happen. These delays, regardless of the reasons, tie up the limited funding available for DRCOG to allocate. At the end of federal fiscal year 25 in late September, DRCOG requested CDOT and RTD review the statuses that we've collected from sponsors over the year for projects with FY25 funded phases. After confirming the project statuses, DRCOG contacted the project sponsors with phases that were not initiated and therefore delayed to find out the reason for their phase not being initiated, to discover the current status of their project, and to assist them in developing an action plan to initiate that phase. To avoid a second-year delay, all project sponsors identified in this report must initiate their phase by July 1st, 2026. All of the projects in your packet and on the screen were delayed as of October 1st. We have 25 first-year delayed projects, of which 2 of those have already been initiated since the deadline. That is the Lone Tree and Wheat Ridge projects. Overall, this is roughly the same amount of projects we had delayed as last year. However, the big difference is we have a wide array of reasons for that instead of 1 or 2 dominating the issues that we were having in the previous fiscal year. So overall, we're interpreting that as a sign of a healthier TIP project delay system. A motion to approve staff's recommendations would allow these projects to continue. And I will put that on the screen now. And last and certainly not least, big thank you to all of our sponsors for cooperating with us throughout the year, providing updates on a monthly basis, which greatly helps us understand what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Comments? Not seeing any. Chair would entertain a motion. Motion I'd be looking for is motion to recommend to the Board of Directors staff's recommendations to continue each of these projects.
Good morning, Deborah Johnson, so moved.
Great, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, before we go on to item number 5, I wanted to just acknowledge the membership of the RTC that may be new here this morning. Jacob's going to help me with that as well. Jacob?
Thank you, Chair Baker. So yeah, this is our first in-person meeting since October, I believe. We met virtually in December. I know we canceled November. And since that time, we've had several new members join RTC. So I'm not going to read through all of the individual names, but up on the screen is just kind of our current membership by agency. So here's DRCOG's current membership on RTC. Sorry, Carolyn, if you'll go to the next one. No, we skipped one. Okay. So CDOT want to welcome all of the new commissioners, both the members and the alternates, to RTC. We're really glad to have you. Next slide. And then RTD, same, we have some new RTD directors, both members and alternates to RTC that have been appointed. So welcome to all of the new RTD folks. Obviously returning members for RAC, and then our other members on RTC are returning members. So just really, welcome to all the new and returning folks. Happy New Year to all of you. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jacob. We'll move on to item number 5. This is the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan update with recommended investment priorities. It is attachment C in your packet, and we're going to hear this morning from Alvin Badal Sanchez, Regional Transportation Planning Program Manager. Good morning, Alvin.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, RTC members. as noted, we're at a pretty critical juncture in the regional transportation plan update. You did hear a briefing back in December, so many of the points here will be some refreshers just as we are in the new year, and a look ahead to the main attachment in your packet, the recommended list of projects and what next steps look like for the regional transportation plan. A reminder that we did receive 133 projects during our calls for projects. That ran the gamut from our local government partners being the bulk of those submittals, 109 from our county transportation forums, submittals from CDOT, DRCOG, and RTD. New this cycle were submittals from DRCOG, and those were focused on the regional bus rapid transit network that's included in the regional transportation plan. A number of the agencies, CDOT and RTD, also did take on some submittals on behalf of our local government partners to open up slots for the county transportation forums to also submit. All those added up equaled about $11.4 billion in asks. Our current financial plan estimates we have about $7.8 billion out to 2050 to spend on projects. So more asks than we can fund in the regional transportation plan. You'll always hear us talk about how it is a fiscally constrained plan. It's not a wish list. So we did have to bring that $11.4 billion down within the $7.8 billion and take into account projects we were already carrying forward in the plan. A couple of pieces that helped us evaluate those projects that were submitted beyond our scores that DRCOG staff provided were also two groups. The first was our regional partner check-ins. So those included planning staff from CDOT regions 1 and 4, RTD and DRCOG. We met weekly from late October into early December, running through 133 projects, how they aligned with various planning priorities of the agencies, how they could be reflected in the regional transportation plan, how they might impact services and facilities for CDOT and RTD. And then the second was our regional review panel meetings. So those met 3 times, and those included local government representatives from each of our counties. So we were able to get a rep from each of our 10 counties across the DRCOG region to help us evaluate those projects, share their perspectives on the criteria, on their priorities, and for 2 of those 3 meetings actually review draft lists of the recommended projects that would be included in the regional transportation plan for recommendation. Some new information from December, focusing on how we got to that recommended list in your meeting packet. Like I had mentioned, we do have projects that we automatically carried forward into the next plan. Those are projects in construction or in the environmental phase, or have funding for construction and NEPA phase in the Transportation Improvement Program. And so we carried forward those automatically. We updated those first. So there were some requests from applicants to change the cost, to change the staging period, maybe some targeted scope revisions to those projects. And so those were updated first. Those took up some of that $7.8 billion. We then focused on projects that were resubmitted in the call for projects. So these are projects that are already in the regional transportation plan, but through our framework had to reapply if they wanted to stay in the regional transportation plan. And so we focused on those that were resubmitted, reflecting a priority of our applicants, our local governments to stay in the plan. Alongside the qualitative scores that DRCOG staff provided to the panel, we also included additional information to help identify priorities for that recommended list. So our travel model team did provide congestion scores along the corridors where we could provide that from our travel model. We leveraged our equity index using a new analysis that we created for the regional transportation plan. And then we looked at what we've been terming geographic balance, but it's been a focus on new applicants. So these might be applicants who haven't had projects in the regional transportation plan before. In this case, it's really Clear Creek, Gilpin counties, our eastern communities in Adams and Arapahoe, so some projects in the Bennett area, as well as some in Southwest Weld. So projects that, or applicants that haven't historically had a project in the regional transportation plan. Where appropriate, we did combine some projects. So in some cases where we received projects along a similar corridor, one example being Alameda, we did combine that project into a larger project. There are some in the list that you will see that do remain separate. So one example would be the Tower Road projects included in the meeting packet. Those are being shown as separate just because we don't believe there will be any efficiencies in combining those through the regional transportation plan process. And then also where appropriate, we did fund non-regionally significant projects programmatically. You'll often hear us talk about projects versus programs. There are some projects on the list that we are including on the programmatic side of the regional transportation plan because they are not regionally significant, so they're not road capacity, they're not transit capacity projects. And their dollar amount is not large enough to need to be shown necessarily on the project side of the plan. So taking all those steps into account, looking at the funding breakdown for the recommended list of projects, a third of the funding that we believe to be available out to 2050 is already being captured by projects we said we would carry forward automatically. Using our framework for the remainder of that funding, about a little over half of that revenue is going to projects that are already in the regional transportation plan, so they're just being asked to stay in the plan with some revisions to cost, scope, staging period potentially. And about 14% of the revenue in the recommended list is going towards new projects. So new projects that are not currently listed in the regional transportation plan that would be new lines and dots on our web map, new rows in our spreadsheets. Recognize that was a long PDF list of projects, so a quick summary of what that investment looks like out to 2050. With the similar framework as how we have the current regional transportation plan, we've added all the costs for projects between the various tables in the regional transportation plan, broken them down historically by CDOT administered, RTD administered, and DRCOG administered funds. And then we've also provided breakdowns for projects that are in our active transportation list, our safety list, our freight list, and then our regional transit list. For the projects that are in those active transportation, safety, freight, and regional transit tables, buckets, those are specific projects to that category. So that is a safety project. It's not a road widening with safety components. It is just a safety project. Similar to a freight project, that is just a bridge reconstruction. That is not a roadway widening with a bridge reconstruction attached. So these are specific projects focused on those project types that are meeting some of those goals that we have identified in the regional transportation plan. As you look across the list, you'll see a breakdown across the various types of projects we include in the RTP. There are a couple sub-bullet points under CDOT and RTD. So part of our planning process beyond just listing individual projects is also just capturing all the revenue we think is going to be spent on transportation. So when I talk about projects versus programs, that's an example of that split. While we are talking about in that first bullet point about $4.5 billion in CDOT projects, there's another $7.9 billion going towards programmatic projects. So those are projects we're not going to list individually in the plan. We might not know what those are right now. An example would be CDOT's recent HSIP call. We know that call is going to continue into the future. There's going to be HSIP funding in our financial plan in the future. We don't know what those projects are right now, but we want to show that investment. So that's an example of what you might see in the programmatic side of the regional transportation plan in the financial plan. And then similar to CDOT for RTD, the bulk of their funding is going towards projects that we don't need to list individually in the plan. They're going to operate, they're going to maintain, they're going to enhance the existing system. We don't need to reflect every bus route out to 2050, but we know buses are going to run in 2050. And so we're showing investment like that on the programmatic side for the plan. We haven't touched on too much are our locally funded projects. So this process has focused on our regionally funded projects, projects that are using DRCOG funding, CDOT funding, RTD funding. We also include locally funded projects. So those are being done by our local government partners, either with funding that they control. So those could be sales tax, bonds. Maybe you have developers completing some of these projects. And so we also reflect those projects if they're on our regional roadway system. And so we've been doing a parallel process, revising those as needed based on targeted outreach to our local government applicants. It does include public highway authorities, so part of the list will also include projects on E470, Jefferson Parkway, and Northwest Parkway if there are expected improvements on those facilities out to 2050. And then any project that is listed as vision in the meeting packet can be shown on the locally funded side if there's reasonable assumptions that that revenue will be available from our local government applicants. Some revisions since we went before the December Transportation Advisory Committee meeting that we received after the meeting packet had gone out or were requests in that meeting for DRCOG staff to explore are shown on the screen. I will run through each of those. We did update the I-25 Central project to reflect a new name and a new staging period. Updated the I-25 North Segment 2A project to reflect cost and staging period change. We flipped the US 85 104th and US 85 128th interchange projects to reflect priority for one over the other at the request of staff from Commerce City. Swapped the 38th Avenue and Welton Street projects in the plan at the request of staff from the City and County of Denver. Updated the costs and revenues of RTD's portion of the financial plan and reflected those in the recommended list of projects. And then we did split a project, the US 36 28th Street and Colorado 93 Broadway project. We are showing a smaller segment occurring earlier in the plan now, just to show that investment that's occurring earlier for business access transit lanes in the city of Boulder. So next steps will also be before the Board of Directors tomorrow evening, seeking approval on the recommended list. Following that hopeful recommendation, we will move into modeling. You often hear us say that it can take us up to 6 months to get through the modeling we have to do to show compliance with our federal air quality standards and the state's greenhouse gas standards. So while we have been testing over the last few months with the plan, with the latest data, we will then move into the official runs for both of those efforts. I do have a recommendation before you, but happy to take any questions. That concludes my presentation, Chair.
Thank you, Alvin. Questions or comments? Director Banker.
Thank you. One comment, so on December 2nd, the RTD board did not approve our 5-year finance plan, which of course is a component of. So the board wanted to talk more about it, understand it more, ask more questions in the next month or two. So then my question would be, if the board makes changes to our 5-year plan, when would that information be incorporated into DRCOG project?
So we're already taking into account RTD's finances through the long-range financial plan, and so that's been our basis for the revenue estimates that we're including in the regional transportation plan. Because RTD side of the books is a little easier from the regional transportation plan side, we do have maybe a couple months where we can work through what maybe the details of the next 5 years look like. But because we're looking out to 2050, we're leveraging the long-range financial plan. I think we're in pretty good step area for RTD's part of the RTP.
Have a comment as well?
I just wanted to alert staff, and you probably already changes my.
Definitely. Arias? Oh, sorry. Director Jones?
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I think when we're talking about long-range finances, one of the things that we do want to keep in mind is the reauthorization bill, which, of course, when we have a new transportation reauthorization bill, supposedly sometime this year, it does expire in September of this year. That, of course, we'll see what happens on various agencies' long-range financial pieces and see what programs we have. So that may be something we'll take a look at in any of these plans. So I just wanted to have that reminder as well.
Please.
First of all, it's great to be back in the DRCOG room. It's been a few years since I was here as a county commissioner, but I think I also owe everyone an apology in creating a new transportation commissioner email and forwarding the meeting invites to myself. I managed to invite and disinvite all of you all several times, I understand. So apologize that it wasn't actually a hack, it was just user error on my part. So I had a question. I was looking at the scoring matrix, I think that was sent out in maybe the December packet, and trying to align the scores with the priority projects. And I know the scoring is just one of the factors that went in, as you so nicely explained, into choosing the list. But nonetheless, I, as a former DRCOGer and now a transportation commissioner, I lean heavily on the goals that the body set for themselves as they decide how to apportion really limited transportation funding. And it seems like there's a disconnect between the MetroVision goals and RTP priorities, the scoring that goes with it, and what came out the other end. And in particular, I was looking at some of the Adams County projects, and the highest projects for Adams County were Havana and Pecos. And those scored quite highly on the overall DRCOG list, I think number 5 and number 7 overall. out of 133, and yet those projects aren't going to see any funding for a decade. And those were just one of many examples of that. And I guess as we deal with limited funding, I wonder if you could talk to this seeming disconnect between our goals and what we're ending up funding. I think our member of the public spoke to that point as well.
I'm happy to. One point of clarification, just from the DRCOG staff side, when it comes to projects in the plan, from our perspective, any project in the regional transportation plan is a priority, regardless of where it's sitting in the staging periods of the plan. There is no greater funding commitment for a project in 2030 to 2034 than there is for a project in 2040 to 2050. So any project in the regional transportation plan is eligible for TIP dollars. That just depends on what the TIP policy is at the time, and those conversations will start later this year in a separate process. On projects also that are not included in the regional transportation plan that shows vision in that meeting packet, if they are active transportation, transit, freight, safety projects, those also remain eligible through our transportation improvement program. So it can be a benefit for a project to be included in the RTP if it's one of those, but they do remain eligible through our TIP process. The projects that we have to include in the plan are our roadway capacity and our transit capacity projects. If a project is not listed that it would be seeking federal funding through us, that is one of those projects, and it's not in the RTP, it would not be eligible for TIP dollars. So we are keeping those projects available and open through our future calls through the TIP because they're not regionally significant. Part of what we had started last cycle for the original 2050 RTP back in 2020 was including more project types than what we have historically included. So if you go back to our 2040 RTP, you will see primarily roadway capacity and some transit capacity projects, but we did not include active transportation projects at that time, safety projects, freight projects at that time. So we have, through this effort, tried to maintain that new process we started back in 2020, including projects that we don't need to include that are focused on active transportation, regional transit improvements, freight improvements, and showing that investment throughout the life of the plan and across the region. So the summary investment slide does show some billions of dollars of investment in those types of projects. And so it's not a matter of like out years in terms of the RTP. There's no greater funding commitment for a project earlier than later from our perspective.
Dr. Jones, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you so much. That's helpful. So just want to make sure that I understand the timing, the staging period, I think is the language, it doesn't reflect any level of priority from DRCOG on a project. It's just a best guess as to when funding will be available, or how are we supposed to interpret the timing and the assumptions around that?
So the staging periods, as we call them, are helpful for our federal air quality and state GHG modeling runs we do. So we have to show projects opening in particular stages of the plan. It also helps with our financial plan piece. So we cannot include every project in the first 10 years. We have to show those costs and those revenues across the life of the plan. So there was no exercise around a more important project is shown earlier in the plan. A project is shown in a particular staging period based on that project being submitted by the applicant when they thought the project would be ready to open, and any conversations we had one-on-one with the applicants between the regional partners. Does this project scope make sense to complete by 2030? Is it more appropriate completed by 2034? Has this project gotten off the ground? Have they even studied anything? Should it be in 2040, 2050? But any project in the RTP is currently eligible for TIP dollars under the current policy. So it would just depend on whether a project's eligible for construction dollars or pre-con dollars. So is it design, right-of-way, environmental?
Thank you.
Jacob?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Baker. Just wanted to add to Alvin's excellent answer, just to zoom out a little bit and really talk about some of the more strategic piece of this. You know, as you all know, we represent a really large and diverse region, and we represent a region that's going to grow by 750,000 people by 2050. So we have ongoing maintenance needs, we have growing population, we have really diverse needs across our region, and our planning process really tries to reflect that. And in particular, for the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan, you know, we describe it as both a top-down and a bottom-up planning process, right? So the project list that you're seeing today, the final plan that you'll see this coming fall, does reflect the great work and the priorities of the agencies in this room and all the great work that you're doing and that we're doing. But an important part of our process as well is those priorities identified by our local government partners. And that is the bottom-up piece where it really is driven by the local governments through the sub-regional transportation forums, who themselves are identifying and ranking for us through their forums the projects that are important to them. And those are included in the plan as well, as they should be. But it is our hope and frankly expectation that even the roadway projects in the plan are as multimodal as they can be. Now that's going to look different in suburban Douglas County than it's going to look in central Denver. Excuse me. But for all these projects in the plan, I think to the original point about, sort of the limited funding that's available, we want to make the most efficient use of the dollars that are available through the plan. And we want all these projects to meet kind of multiple goals, to do multiple things, so that even a roadway project, will hopefully have sidewalks, we'll have transit service, bus stops, those sorts of things. Those are the type of win-win investments that we're looking for in the plan and that we think are reflected in this project list.
Thank you. Kelly.
Can you hear me? Okay. I wanted to echo some of what Jacob said because it holds true for CDOT for sure. We are a very diverse region, and CDOT is every sense multimodal. But I wanted to add a bit of and apologies to Elise who's heard this before, but part of the reason that CDOT wants to see managed lanes in I-25 is that the agency is actually pioneering a national model for bus rapid transit in the interstate. And so what we'll have once those are completed is a corridor that can be used by a Mustang and that can induce a lot of added demand because of the time savings already from Centera Loveland. You see a 30-plus minute benefit from taking Mustang relative to a car in peak times. So it's something that I think has contributed to the ridership on Mustang. They've doubled service, more than doubled service in that corridor, and every time they add service, it just keeps getting filled up. So I'm with you, Kristen. I think we got to do stuff, but this allows us to facilitate transit on a regional and interregional basis. So it's one reason I'm actually happy to see it go. And we can look to some of the RTD routes for examples of this. The Flatiron Flyer took advantage of the added lane, the managed lane in US 36, built at the same time, and one of the most successful, especially the FF2, when it was going full bore. Likewise, the AB going to the airport is often standing room only, and it takes advantage of the managed lanes in Northwest Parkway and so forth. So, and then I just have personal experience with that with the shuttle that I ran, and would argue as well for the 270 managed lanes, because even though I think we have the FF5 going there currently, but I think you have to take into account that there are shared ride shuttle companies, about 30 of them that go to the airport, and a good number of them could use 270. And mind you, these folks are getting cars off the road at no public cost. So I think that's an argument for 270's managed lanes as well. So just wanted to thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments? Yes.
Hi, it's Skylar McKinley from AAA. I would just say I reviewed at length the comments sent along from the public, and I appreciate the members of the public who are here today. And if I could summarize in jest, but also seriously, those comments, there's about half saying every highway widening is countervailing to our goals when it comes to increasing transportation choice, decreasing emissions, increasing transportation freedom. And then there's a whole other segment of comments saying, hey, well, you guys are really boneheaded for investing a dime in that transportation freedom. And I just offer those examples to say that that's the nature of transportation planning. And what's come to this group has been reviewed by expert planners who really take a sober, non-biased look at these projects, and it's been reviewed through several gates before it gets to us. And so there's no perfect solution, but I'll be voting yes because I think this represents a balanced plan. And of course, I will also offer, it's easy for the car guy to say, oh, well, they're widening highways and we're for that. You know, I walked 2 miles to get here today. I don't drive. I avail myself of all the transportation options in that document and represent members who want to see some lane management, want to see widened highways, and also want to see repressed transit. So I do think this is a balanced document. I want to thank everyone who brought it to us. And there's more work to do. I think this is a carrot-based discussion in this room. And to really get serious about some of those emissions goals, I think we have to have a lot of stick conversations, but that's probably for the legislature, for the governor, and for local governments, and less for this group.
Thank you, Skylar. Right at the end, Director Silverstein.
Yes, and thank you. And I too want to acknowledge all of the comments that were sent out to us and on last week, submitted by our members of the public and the person who's here in the room today, making that special effort. We hear that same kind of conversation at the Regional Air Quality Council, because transportation is such a big component, and the diversity of opinion in this area is great. So what I caught from the presentation today and our conversation in December was, that we have a lot of projects, lots of money out there. We have not enough money, of course, to meet the need, and that it's difficult to quantify the kind of non-vehicle beneficial projects that are embedded in the road improvements. So yes, there may be an expansion of an additional lane on a road, but it's also coming with sidewalk, the transit capabilities, and so maybe it's a difficult thing to do in presentation, but I think that should be a goal of DRCOG and of us in this committee, is to maybe do a better communication job to call that out, to say, yes, this is what's going on to meet the need of whether it's freight or if it's getting congestion reduced on I-25 or I-70, but also when we're doing that by adding physical lanes, this is the benefit that's also gained for transit use and for the to increase the mode options. So I think it's a communication piece. I too will vote in favor of the recommendation today, but I also want to relay a caution in that we're presenting a long range plan for vote today, but it goes into then the 5-year TIP process where, okay, we have a vision that goes out to 2050, but the real work begins in coming up with, okay, what happens over the next 5 years and what gets funded of all that great list of projects that's presented to us. And so the caution is that to meet the air quality goals in this, one of the major assumptions is to rely on new vehicle standards, electric vehicle penetration into our market, and that is being dramatically undercut by the federal administration. And so that's the standards will remain the same for us here, but our reliance on cleaner vehicles, electric vehicles, zero emission vehicles, won't be as certain as we thought it was going to be, which then may need to turn the emphasis on what we're voting to approve today into something different. That if we're going to meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction standards, and we've done a good job in designing a plan to do so, when kind of the rug is pulled out from underneath you, for the future, it's going to be very difficult to make all of this come true in meeting the air quality and climate goals that DRCOG and the state has. So that's just one note for us to keep in mind as we move forward, that things are going to change, and this project list may have to be different in order to achieve the air quality and climate goals that we've all set for ourselves. So that's, sorry, sounds like a speech here, but just wanted to present that perspective to the group today.
Thank you, Director Silverstein. Commissioner Banker.
Thank you. I feel like I'm still a student of DRCOG and the TIP. Here's another question, or if you could provide me with some information. When I'm looking at the projects that you have, I noticed, for example, the rail line, the N line. I did not see it in the list. It is being funded through Senate Bill 230. So the dollars are there, and they're going to CDOT, working with RTD. So a project like that added at this late date, the funding is there if we go for the project.
Alvin?
Just any information on this would be very helpful.
So we would need to include that project in the regional transportation plan. It is what we would consider a regionally significant transit capacity project. The projects that are included on the RTD side are those that were submitted from RTD staff. And so the two that came through our process were the Northwest Rail peak period service and the light rail overhaul enhancement maintenance project. So there are opportunities after this particular update to the plan to add projects. We do amend the plan in between our typical 4-year update, and so that could occur in the next 2 years. That would also be an opportunity to capture some of the changes that Director Pockbaz was mentioning about finances and reauthorization. And so last time when we updated the 2050 RTP adopted it in 2020, we amended it in 22 to reflect the state's GHG work, but also new finances we were seeing that were coming out of the IIJA BIL that had been passed. So we do have opportunities to amend the plan after our original adoption with some targeted revisions, adding projects, removing projects, moving projects within the plan.
Okay, so then a question, since you said that the final plan is not going to be adopted for another couple of years, is it too late to add something?
Jacob?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Baker. Director Baker, clarification question. When you say the end line, are you actually referring to Front Range Rail, joint service, all of that work?
No, the last 2 stations of the end line.
Oh, the last 2 stations of the end line, okay.
Sorry, I wasn't clear.
Yeah, so it is in our long range vision plan, all of, the complete fast tracks build out. But to this date, to your point taken that there is some funding coming through some recent legislative bills, but some of the remaining elements of fast tracks, as we know, are not fiscally constrained in the sense that there isn't guaranteed revenue by a certain point to be able to include them in the plan as shown. But having said that, it is a goal of all of us and multiple agencies and continue to work together to find those revenues to be able to move the entire fast tracks program forward.
Well, this is specifically those last 2 stations, and there was specific funding provided in Senate Bill 230. 20%, the oil and gas bill that was passed. And it's pretty clear in state legislation what the intent was. So since it was so well defined, I guess I'm just curious as to why it's not included in TIP and possible to still include it. Is it too late for this round?
Yeah, and I might ask, I hate to put people on the spot, but Bill Soroy, maybe if you could help.
Thank you. What I would say about the end line in terms of the certainty of funding, I think, when we did look at that as part of the Finishing Fast Tracks report, we identified the gap that was there. I do think there is an intent for that funding to be with the end line, going towards the end line. I think there's some uncertainty though, because we have not seen we've seen forecasts for that money, but we have not seen specific revenues in terms of coming in. I do think, and we also based our submissions based upon what was in the RTD long range plan passed by the board, which included the Northwest Rail, but it did not include the end line. It only included the 3 projects. The 3 projects it included were the Northwest Rail peak service, new bus maintenance facility, and the light rail modernization program. So again, we were trying to be consistent with what the board had passed with the long range plan. I do think as those funds become more certain, and I would maybe pass it back to Jacob in terms of a future process for amending the long range plan in terms of when that could be, when there's more certainty on that funding and how that would play out over the long term.
Jacob?
Yeah, thank you. And that is a final point I wanted to make back to the sort of the original question. And the original point, transportation planning is a snapshot in time, right? So we update this plan every 4 years as required by federal law, though we would anyway. And we amend this plan sort of in between as needed because we recognize that things do change. They change on the revenue side, they change on the project side. So as some of those specific revenues that you're referring to become more certain, become more stable, start flowing through, and that we see in that opportunity to incorporate that, yes, we can come back and amend the plan at the right time to include that.
Jacob, what would be the impetus for that? What would trigger that amendment?
In this particular case, I would say that some communication with RTD and some understanding and comfort amongst the agencies that those revenues are becoming certain. They are starting to show up, those, that not just forecasts, but that those revenues are there, that they are dedicated, that comfort level that they are dedicated towards those investments. Like any project, right, that is a federal requirement. Every project we include in the plan has to be fiscally constrained, meaning that there has to be reasonably anticipated revenue that will be available to fund those projects. And so when that bar is met, along with the other federal requirements and things we do when we amend the plan, that would be the timing and the process in which we would undertake that.
Thank you. Are there any other, yes, Director Jones.
Thanks for that. I asked a question earlier, but didn't make a comment, so if you'll indulge me. And I think, Karen, you bring up a really good point. I'm not sure why the M-line isn't in there with Senate Bill 230. That seems more secure of a funding source than many projects have. And I interpret this conversation of maybe you get the RTD board to speak in the next few months, that this indeed would be a project worth adding. But I don't want to run afoul of the system, but if I were you, that's what I would do. I just want to echo some of the comments that Michael Silverstein's made and some of the public comments. I do think, well, I'm showing up midway through the process, and I want to honor the process and all of the work that's gone into this. And I have been through an RTP process when I was on DRCOG, so I understand the work. And so I will not stand in the way, and I will vote yes, but with some reluctance. And I feel like I need to explain that. Before I sat on the Transportation Commission, I sat on the Air Quality Control Commission, and we are in severe non-attainment with the ozone standard, with not really a clear path for reaching attainment. And that has a toll in terms of asthmatic kids and healthcare dollars in our region in the millions of dollars. It's significant, and we're not there yet. On climate, we are not meeting our climate targets as a state. We just all heard that the last 3 years were the warmest in history. I mean, we are playing with some very scary planetary tipping points. And, I think it was mentioned that we're starting to shut off our electricity because of the wildfire danger in the middle of winter. I had my electricity shut off twice in a 36-hour period for, 24 hours a pop. And that's just to prevent wildfires because our winter is so unseasonably warm and everything is so dry. So that is our new normal. So transportation is the hardest part to crack. We are the people that are deciding how we're investing in transportation solutions. So we have the opportunity to make forward progress with the decisions that are made. And the RTP is the portal through which we will then attach funding. So this is not an insignificant thing that we're doing. And so we need to connect the dots. And this is a lot of the carrot, but it's also aligning funding with those goals. So I think that we have a duty to address those larger challenges and also the affordability crisis that is affecting our region. We know that a third of our residents don't drive cars because they can't. They're too young, they're too old, they don't have the ability, they're not making that choice, or more often than not, they don't have the financial wherewithal. So the solutions for addressing mobility also run into affordability. Again, something that we have the opportunity to move the needle on. I am concerned that in our time of scarce dollars, that we need to even be more strategic about where we spend money in a way to address challenges, which is why I brought up the multimodal piece. And I appreciate Shelley's point about we need to figure out how to be a national model in terms of bus rapid transit. I think we have more work to do, but I appreciate the opportunity to raise those issues and look forward to continuing to fine-tune our funding choices as we move through the funding process as the Transportation Commission works through the 10-year plan process. So thanks for indulging me.
Thank you. Alvin, I had a question. Do all the comments, all the public comments, I think I know the answer, they go to the DRCOG Board of Directors as well when they hear this item, correct?
So I'm not sure if these particular comments directed to the RTC will be shared directly automatically with the board, but we'll make note of them for the directors, and they'll be added to the webpage for this RTC meeting, similar to what we did for TAC. So all the comments will be available through our website, but we also catalog all of those, and we'll include them in our engagement appendix that will be part of the RTP. So we'll reflect all of the feedback we've heard through public comments, engagement out amongst the region. So it'll be a full catalog of everything.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Chair would entertain a motion.
I recommend approval of investment priorities.
Motion's made by Shelley Cook. Is there a second? Executive Director Johnson?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further comment? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Thank you. This will move to the Board of Directors of DRCOG. We're going to move ahead now to item number 6, 2026 Federal Safety Targets, Attachment D in your packet. And we're going to hear this morning from Carolyn Clam, who's a planner with DRCOG.
All right. Good morning, everyone. As introduced, I will be here to talk about federal safety targets. So just a quick review of the federal performance areas that DRCOG interacts with. We have all these different performance measures and performance areas, but today we'll be focusing on this PM1 safety performance. And that's a performance area that comes from the Federal Highway Administration. So a quick overview of this safety performance measure. The area we're dealing with is public roads in the DRCOG MPO region. It's not our full planning boundary, just the MPO portion of our region. The data source for this performance measure comes from CDOT and DRCOG. CDOT geolocates on-system data, DRCOG geolocates off-system data. We'll be dealing with 5 different metrics, and I'll go over those in more detail, but there's 3 numeric measures and 2 rate measures. So the 3 numeric measures are number of fatalities, number of serious injuries, number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And then the 2 rate measures are the rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled and the rate of serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. We calculate these with a 5-year rolling average of 5 consecutive points of data with 1 projected year, and hopefully that will make more sense when I get a graph on the screen. And finally, federal guidance and penalty. We're instructed that the target should be realistic and achievable, not purely aspirational, and DRCOG can choose to set our own targets or support CDOT's state targets, and DRCOG just does choose to set our own. The penalty for not meeting targets, there's no financial penalty or funding restriction, but there is additional scrutiny that comes with not meeting our targets. So DRCOG's methodology sort of comes from these 3 key points. The first is loss of life is not an acceptable price to pay for mobility. DRCOG adopted taking action on Regional Vision 0, so we're aiming for 0 serious injuries and loss of life on our roadways. Like I said, those targets are based off of those 0 fatalities by 2040, as listed in our Regional Vision 0 plan, and serious injuries by 2045. As we calculate this, we set the target to the latest available data and then recalculate the average reduction required to achieve 0. So basically, for every year we don't go down, get the numbers to go down, then the line has to get steeper in order to achieve our targets. And then finally, balancing that aspirational goal of 0 with the federal requirement that targets must be short-term and realistic. So visualization, I think, will help. So for example, this is our current data on people killed in crashes by year. The purple line with the circles is the actual data we have available, and the green line is the average yearly reduction required to get to 0 by 2040. So, you know, if that purple line continues to go down, then the slope can stay the same, but if it goes back up, then the slope will have to get steeper. So then here's the numeric values for the actual calculation. So we have 3 years of actual data we have available. So those are 2022, 23, 24, and that's our observed data. And then we have to project 2 years of data because 1 year, because we don't have crash data very quickly yet, and 1 year because we don't know what will happen in 2026. So that gets us, we do a 5-year average of those and calculate our target. In this case, it's 309. So the same calculation can be done for people seriously injured, and this requires a yearly reduction of about 100 fewer serious injuries a year. And again, you can, these are the numbers of serious injuries, and the target is calculated in the same way. Although I'll note on this one, our 0 is 2045 instead of 2040. And then for our non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, again, the calculation is pretty much the same, although with this one, we calculate deaths and serious injuries separately and then combine them, and this is the combined chart right here. And again, we do the 5-year average. So our list of proposed targets are all here, and the desired trend is down for all targets, as well as the rate targets as well. I've listed up here. So, you know, in wondering, how have we done with previous targets? So we were here last year. Have we met those targets? That sort of thing. So here's the list of previous, all those 5 targets, and then by year. We don't have 2025 data yet, so I can't show you 2025, but for all of them, you can see sort of how we've done. We've achieved quite a few of them previously, but in recent years, we haven't achieved the safety targets. We haven't achieved very many of them. So in light of that, what are we doing at the agency and in the region to try to improve safety? So the last time we were here, we talked about updating the active transportation plan. That has since been complete. We said we were going to continue to host regional Vision Zero working group meetings. We have continued to do that. We said we were going to hire a second senior safety planner, and that planner is on board and doing good work at the agency. These are also some ongoing things, you know, we said we had been doing previously and we are continuing to do. So we're working on a minor update to taking action on Regional Vision Zero, and you guys will actually get to hear more about that in the next item. We're working on a Vision Zero quick build toolkit. The Crash Data Consortium is also continuing to do work with improving time for getting crash data, as well as researching other states' crash data systems. And finally, we have submitted in the past and continue to look at SS4A regional grant applications. So happy to take any questions, but I do have a recommended motion available for you on the screen.
Thank you, Carolyn. Questions or comments? So, Chair would entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Skylar, thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? All right, thank you, Michael. We have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. We are going to move on to our informational briefing. This is item number 7, taking action, as good segue from the last item, to taking action on Regional Vision Zero minor update kickoff. This is attachment E in your packet, and we'll have Carolyn Rush come forward. Good morning, Carolyn. Catherine, sorry.
That's all right. Good morning, everybody. We are kicking off a minor update to taking action on Vision Zero. And so today I'm just giving you a quick briefing on the scope of work for that effort, where the current plan stands today, and what you can expect over the next year. So looking at the current plan, it is our regional plan for improving transportation safety, and it was first adopted in 2020. However, there was an update that was adopted in 2024 that added action items. The original plan, the current plan, used 2013 to 2017 crash data. And then also in 2024, the board officially adopted a resolution that set the goal of 0 traffic fatalities. That was implied in the current plan, but wasn't formally stated. So some of the key components of the plan include a regional high injury network. So these are the streets where a disproportionate number of fatal and serious injury crashes occur, where making investments and dedicating resources is likely to make the most impact. And then we also have regional crash profiles. So these are types of crashes that we want to bring special attention to that tend to lead to a disproportionate number of fatal and serious injury crashes. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. We also have engineering countermeasures that are a list of countermeasures intended to address these types of crashes. And then we also have action items and implementation plan with priorities that help to guide our work. So what exactly is this plan for? We use it to help prioritize corridors for studies and funding. The action items in there help guide this agency's safety-related work. We've heard that it's used by communities that either lack their own might lack their own plan to help them apply for safe streets and roads for all funding, because it can be used for that. It also can serve as a template or reference when developing local safety plans. So a lot of local communities will look to see what's in our plan, see if there's alignment, or use it to spark inspiration. And then we've also heard from advocates that it can be that it's been used to build support for improvements on corridors. So for this minor update that we're calling it, our key focus areas that we want to, our objectives for it, are to update the regional high injury network and the regional crash profiles with more recent crash data. So we're going to be using 2020 to 2024 crash data. We are going to be adding high risk networks. We hear a lot, and we believe that we shouldn't be waiting for a serious crash to occur before making safety improvements. And so this is going to help us look at where are locations that are at a high risk for serious crashes, and then add certain what we're calling missing elements that were kind of called out to us through past Safe Streets and Roads for All applications. So going back to the regional crash profiles, I mentioned these are types of crashes that we want to bring attention to. We separate these out by area types to bring attention to the unique characteristics of our urban, suburban, and rural communities. So in this example, the suburban crash type, the crash profiles are failing to yield and turning conflicts, pedestrian involved, and rear end and stopped or slowing vehicles. So the intent is to call additional attention to these types of crashes. And here's an example of a high-risk network. This is from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, and it shows it's a high-risk network that ranks corridors based on their risk for lane departure crashes. So we would pick a crash type and then look to develop a high-risk network based off of that, looking at literature, what the literature has found to be to indicate as high-risk characteristics for different crash types. And then examples of missing elements that we want to add. So adding the Vision Zero target that was adopted in 2024, a description of how progress will be measured, so making sure we align with the federal safety targets, and then a discussion of how projects will be prioritized or any key safety projects that we want to bring attention to in the region. So some of our activities to date so far, a geography class from the University of Colorado, Denver, worked with our GIS team, and they compiled a review of best practices for developing HINs, particularly for regional governments. And they helped create a sliding windows tool to help automate the HIN development process, although it's still pretty labor-intensive. We had a brainstorming session this fall with the Regional Vision Zero Working Group on the methodology for developing the High Injury Network to make sure we're in alignment with local communities, and then developing initial draft versions of the Regional High Injury Network and crash profiles that we're working on right now. So here's our schedule. Key things that I wanted to highlight are we are aiming to have a public review period this summer and then bring it back for adoption later this fall, winter timeframe. Before going to public review, it will be brought to this group and to the board for input as well on the draft High Injury Network and crash profiles. And there will be meetings with the Regional Vision Zero Working Group throughout. And a little bit, as Carolyn touched on, I was going to just add some of our related safety work. So we are working on a regional quick build toolkit that's going to have an inventory of countermeasures and where the literature stands on these countermeasures and their effectiveness. Lessons learned about different material types. So we've been reaching out to communities locally as well as nationally to hear what's worked well for them, how they've handled maintenance and seasonality concerns. Also guidance on asphalt art. What materials they're using, where is it appropriate, any safety considerations, before and after evaluation template, because a lot of times these treatments are used to either evaluate how effective these treatments are, to build support, things like that, and then lessons learned on why some communities seem to be more successful, and what others can do to try to get to that level. We also submit each year a regional safe streets and roads for all regional application. Unfortunately, we just found out that our application was not selected this past year, and in fact, no communities in Colorado were selected for funding. We are adding new features to our regional crash data dashboard. So if you go to the dashboard and you zoom in on a crash point and you can click on it, a whole bunch of new features and information will show up about each crash. We have new filters, such as we're working on developing a filter for like CDOT roadways to help different agencies evaluate crash data. And then we have the Crash Data Consortium, which is conducting research into other states' crash data systems to see if there are lessons learned. Here's my contact information, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Dr. Silverstein.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I've mentioned this at previous meetings, but curious if enforcement is a key role in any of the work that you're doing. We spend a lot of money on design and improvement, but from my perspective, very little on enforcement. So it's out of control out there. I think we all know that. And whether it's photo radar or getting for speeding or reckless driving or careless driving, more so that's been done to date. Does that play into the conversation that you all have in your work groups?
Yes, it does. And we are hoping to have a kind of dedicated working group meeting in particular about enforcement activities and specifically automated enforcement here in the next year or so. It does play a key role in a safe system. So we talk about safe roads, safe speeds, safe road users, and a key component of safe speeds, safe road users is the enforcement aspect of that and promoting safe behaviors.
Other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're going to move on to our administrative items this morning. First up, Colorado Department of Transportation. Jessica?
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'm sorry I don't have a name tag. I think it's in the other grouping. So Jessica Mickelbust, Department of Transportation, CDOT Region 1. And just providing the update, and since I have the floor, I usually focus in a little bit more on Region 1 than CDOT as a whole. But as Commissioner Jones mentioned, our last commission meeting, we did present Regions 1 and Region 4, which are in the DRCOG area. We did present our 10-year plan portfolio of projects. We gave a very high synopsis, but if you'd like to dig into all the projects, those are listed. Good conversation, particularly for our local agencies to listen in on which projects we're prioritizing in the 10-year plan in Regions 1 and Regions 4. And I was going to catch Darius, but I don't believe the public comment portal is quite open yet for our 10-year plan for comments. But it should be shortly, and it will be open for 30 days once it opens. So please encourage everybody to submit comments on the list of projects that we have brought forward. So that's kind of one of the things we've been spending a lot of time and doing a lot of work on that. Other big highlights for the region, we haven't seen a lot of snow in the Denver metro area. We got a little dusting this weekend. I was up in the high country. We did get some accumulation and quite a bit of snow Sunday night, so we did have plow drivers out and about, but a little bit warmer weather, so we are kind of working on and able to do a little bit of extra general roadway safety maintenance that we sometimes don't get to do in winter time. So you will see our teams out doing safety critical repairs, guardrail. It's a little too cool for pothole repairs, but they are out there, so please beware and watch out for them. Other than that, not a whole lot going on in Region 1. We're busy 24 hours a day, so thank you for the opportunity to come. I think you've heard enough from me today.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to RTD, Executive Director Johnson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things I'd like to highlight, then I'll yield the floor to the directors that are in the room from the RTD board. Quite naturally, in reference to it being the middle of January, there's football going on, in case y'all didn't know. The agency bolstered its transit service delivery this past Saturday, anticipation of the surge in the demand with the game that featured the home team being the Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. In addition to that day, you may be aware that the Nuggets were playing the Wizards at Ball Arena. So we had quite a bit of activities occurring in the downtown. In recent weeks, we have been in conversations, or I should say regular near daily contact with the Broncos organization to ensure that our service delivery can align with their expectations as it relates to the stadium operations and anticipated needs. Additionally, we have leveraged our third-party security in addition to RTD PD and other employees, what we call our impact teams, to be deployed across the system at bus stops and rail stations near Empower Field at Mile High Stadium and at Ball Arena. And our elevated services have been in alignment with what we did for like New Year's Eve as well. On a related topic, we have a cross-matrix team working within the organization. Director Banker put this forward back in October, whereby the team is developing a high-volume events planning aspect as we look at different key activity centers within the region. We're doubling back, bringing that to the board in February relative to the plans that we are working on. As relates to our tri-annual service changes, just this past, it was the Sunday after New Year's Eve, we had our service changes that took effect, and they were associated with the light rail pattern from the L, D, and H lines being reinstated after we completed work from a state of the repair aspect with our rail reconstruction downtown. Moreover, as we talk about other changes that occurred around the same time, RTD's Access on Demand program, which is a supplemental premium paratransit program, modifications were made. The board approved those changes back in September. We were doing massive outreach, and those adjustments went into effect on January 1st. Those modifications include an upfront cost of $4.50 for a base fare trip. It's in alignment with the American with Disabilities Act of 1990, RTD branded paratransit service known as Access-a-Ride fare. Those that are eligible for discounts through LIV can receive that discount of $2.25. RTD provides a transit subsidy, or I should say trip subsidy, that went from $25 to $20, and then our service hours align with our standard Access-a-Ride services. More specifically, as we move on to some other key elements within our agency, I want to touch upon our apprenticeship program. This is quite important for us as we develop our own pipeline, recognizing RTD is the only intermodal transit agency in the state. Oftentimes when we're looking for individuals with certain
acumen, it may be difficult. And so the agency's General Repair Mechanic Apprenticeship Program, which is the first in the state of Colorado within transit, launched in November. An initial cohort, of 10 mentors and 5 mentees were accepted into the program. And this will be an 18-month period. Long story short, apprentices work toward mastery of fundamental skills, attainment of 66 competencies in 8 areas, and completion of 288 hours of classroom instruction. And really what's interesting about the program is that these students are able to get one-on-one coaching and support throughout the program. And when mentees finish the program, the goal is for graduates to move into a general repair mechanic job. And so that's important, as we had some difficulties acquiring the talent in those fields. And then lastly, I want to round out with RTD's Transit Police Department received an Agency Trilogy Award from the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association. And the agency received the recognition based on the entire department's command staff, lieutenants, commanders, the deputy chief, and chief, having completed all 3 courses in the Trilogy Leadership Series, the Supervisor Leadership Institute, the Command Leadership Institute, and the Executive Leadership Institute. And collectively, these programs are designed to develop essential skills in diversity, strategic planning, wellness, emotional intelligence, and helping officers progress from supervisory to executive roles. So I wanted to touch upon that because that's something notable, especially when the agency took the direction in investing in its own sworn police force instead of relying on third-party security. And we're very proud that we have seen reduced calls in service and just overall more welcoming transit environment for those that are utilizing the systems, and more importantly for our employees who stated in the employee survey we had a double-digit decrease in those that felt as if they were going to be a target in the workplace. So with that, I'll yield the floor to Director Banker and Director Pagliari should they have additional information they'd like to touch upon. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just real quick, I see the next couple of weeks and months we're going to be working we're going to be taking our budget, we're going to be looking at it with a fine-tooth comb, both on the base budget, taking a look at what we might find some efficiencies there. And we're also going to be looking at the revenue side. So any dollars that might be out there, we are going to be looking for and trying to rein them in. We've got a board retreat coming up on February 7th, and it's going to be at that point that I think the board is going to be setting the work plan for the year. Really financial stability.
Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for the tardiness. I'm Director Pagliari. I represent District M, Edgewater, Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, and Golden in Jefferson County on the RTD Board of Directors, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we are going to have a report on the RAC from Director Silverstein.
Oh, thank you very much. And it's been quiet since it's been the holiday season, and so I don't have a news to report out today. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other members here have any they'd like to say? Yes, Director.
One for the benefit of the group and a request. So I very much appreciate the safety conversation we had today, which is fundamental to all forms of transportation. Safety is tied to budgets. It's a tough year for the state budget, but the work continues apace at the state legislature. Representative Smith will be introducing a bill very shortly here that would change all statutory references from accident to crash. The way that we talk about things shapes how we deal with them and shapes how drivers behave and pedestrians behave and so on. And so that little language choice actually can affect behavior in a meaningful way. It does so at zero cost to state coffers. So 2 requests. If your member governments would be interested in supporting the bill, please reach out to me. This is a whole transportation safety cleanup that doesn't affect much of substance, but does on this language issue, which then allows groups like mine to get the word out. And then in your own jurisdictions, if you're still using the A word, I would suggest it's a very simple cleanup to change that to crash. During the presentation today, of course, we didn't hear the word accident. When 94% of accidents occur because of an error in infrastructure or driver behavior, they're not an accident. It's not an accident when you speed. It's a choice. It's a crash that results from contemplative behavior. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the group? Executive Director Rex.
I'll steal your Good morning, everybody. Thank you, sir, very much. I just want to mention, listen, I truly appreciate the conversations we have around this room. We've talked about it for years, how robust the conversations are amongst our peer agencies. And I just want to take a time, because I know we have a few new folks in the room. Old and familiar. Familiar faces, not old faces. And Elise Jones, she was actually chair of the DRCOG board, so I wanted to make sure that was recognized. This RTC, the Regional Transportation Committee, it's very unique in the metropolitan planning organization space. There's not many, if any, that have this type of structure in which, and the purpose of it, it was set up many years ago to ensure that our partners in the MPO process, most notably CDOT and RTD, the unholy trinity, and DRCOG, that our partners, while we govern the MPO process, that you all are part of that process. So it began years ago to ensure that you had an equal voice in that process. And of course, then we also introduced additional stakeholders to the group and all that kind of good stuff. But the important thing and the uniqueness of this is that the actions that you all take, now out of laziness, we refer to this body as a recommending body to the board, but actually it really isn't. It's a co-approval body to the board. So any action you take, the board has to accept and approve that action verbatim. If they do not, if they change that motion comes back to you all for ratification. So ultimately, there has to be, some synergy between the two bodies. So I just wanted to share that with you. I've always been very proud of this body, so thank you.
Good. All right. Reminder that our next meeting will be February 17th. And drive safely. We are adjourned. Cam has the get out of jail free stickers for the parking garage, so.